Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about variables in Python. Variables are the basic unit in Python coding, so it's very important to understand the concept. First, we're going to talk about how to create a variable in Python coding. Second, we're going to talk about different types of variables. And third, we're going to talk about how to determine the type of a variable in Python coding. So let's get started. First, let's use our online Python editor, Google Colab. We go to Google Colab, open a new notebook, and we name this new notebook Variables in Python. And you can see this is our first code. This is our first cell code. You can just simply use your mouse and then you can start writing something there. So in Python coding, we use hashtag to write some notes there for ourselves. So these notes can be for ourselves or for others. Because when you write some coding, sometimes people may not follow your logic, right? So you can always put some notes there and use hashtag. So when you use hashtag here, you're telling Python, this is not a coding, this is just a note, and do not run this one. So Python will understand. Okay, so this is my first note, just notes for myself. And this is my second line. You can just hit this Enter button and go to the next line. And you can hit backspace to go back to the previous line, right? So I can go to the next line. If I want to create some space in between different lines, I can just hit Enter button twice to go to the next line. So in order for me to create a variable, I first have to name this variable. So for example, my variable I can name it consumer. That can be the name of the variable. Or you can use a compound name like consumer sentiment. So I can use underscore and consumer underscore sentiment. So this will become the name of my variable. So to create a variable, your variable has to have a value. To assign a value to this variable, we use the equal sign. So here, I'm just going to type equal sign and type a value, for example, number 2. But you can see that it's very hard to read this whole line in Python because there is no space. So for reading reason, you can add a space, just highlight here and hit the space button before and after the equal sign. You can create a space there that's easier to read. But the space will not affect the Python coding. So either no space or with space, it's okay. But it's easier for us to read. So once you assign a value to this variable, then you can print out this variable by use the print function, type print parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you can put the variable name there. I'm just going to copy and paste the variable name here. So print, this function will tell us what is will give us the output of this whole lines of coding, because I want Ask Python to print out this variable called consumer sentiment. So basically Python will print out the value of this single variable. So to run the whole lines of coding, we just hit the run button on the left hand side. So let's just hit it. And it's running now, you can tell. There is circle. And you can see output is 2 because I just assigned a value of 2 to this variable called consumer sentiment. Okay, so let's create another cell below this one. So click on the insert button, code cell. And so for this one, I'm just going to give me some notes there. So I'm going to type different types of variables. So I'm going to hit enter button again, create another line there, but I want to save some space. So I'm just going to hit enter button twice. So basically, we can do different types of variables by assigning different values to a variable. So for example, you can give a numerical value, like a number, to your variable. For example, my consumer sentiment here has the value of 2, and 2 is a numerical value. So it's a number. So for numbers, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Or it can be a float, like 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So there are numbers. And another type is string. So string means text. And when you actually create a string, you have to use quotation marks. You can either use single quotation or double quotations or even triple quotation. So I can use simple quotation here. I can type a value there. For example, let me just say, this is my score. So actually, I create a string value here. I have quotation marks, and inside the quotation marks, I have a sentence. This is my score. So let's try to assign different value to consumer sentiment. So here we have already assigned a value of 2 to consumer sentiment. We can update the same variable by giving this variable another new value. For example, if I assign number 3 to consumer sentiment, this variable, and once I print out consumer sentiment, and you know what's going to happen? The output will become 3 because consumer sentiment, this variable has been updated from number 2 to number 3. This is how we can update a variable in our whole coding here. And the thing is that even though you see 2 separate cells in my editor, but when Python read these cells, Python start from the first line and the second line, third line, fourth line, and then read the lines in the second cell. So everything is in a sequential fashion, and content in the previous cell will affect content in the later cell, and they are together. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so I can assign a different value to this consumer sentiment variable. For example, I can assign a float number. So it's 4.0. So let's print it out. And the output of this variable becomes 4.0. What if I assign another type of variable? So let's assign a string value to this variable consumer sentiment. So you can see the string has the quotation marks outside. And inside the quotation marks, I have the sentence, this is my score, dot. And it's a period. So I have the whole string value. This is called string. So when I assign this string value to this variable, and I print out the variable, the output will become the string value. This is my score, period. Okay, I can also assign a list. So the list is looking like this. So we use square brackets. Inside the square brackets, you can add any values. Can be numbers like this, or you can also add a string. But if you want to add a string, you always have to use quotation mark. You can use single quotation marks like this, or you can use double quotation marks like this. Either one. So let's actually use this string, this list, and assign this list to the consumer sentiment variable and print it out. So let's see here. You can see the consumer sentiment has this list value. Okay, so let's do another type of variable called dictionary. So dictionary, basically you use curly brackets. So inside the curly brackets, you have to start with the key. So let's see. Let's write the key usually can be a string. For example, let's use the name Tom, and followed by column and value. And then you're gonna have this period. Sorry, the comma here. And then you're gonna have another key. Let's call it Kelly. And with a value of 3. So this is a dictionary. We're going to talk more about dictionary later. So dictionary is formatted in this way. We have curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets, we have the key. So the first key is Tom. It's a string. So I use quotation marks here, and then followed by column. And then number 2 is the value of this key, Tom. And then I have a comma here. And then the second key is Kelly. You can see it's a string, so I have the quotation marks here, and then followed by column. And after column, number 3 is the value of this second key, Kelly. So I can actually use this dictionary and assign this dictionary to consumer sentiment. And you can see if I run this one, my output will become this dictionary. So you can see these 4 different types of variables are most commonly used in Python coding. We can also do like a tuple. Tuple, we use parentheses. And inside parentheses, we can do different values, like 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. And if I use this tuple and I assign this tuple to the variable consumer underscore sentiment, I print it out, and the tuple will become my output. This is the value of this variable called consumer sentiment. Okay, so now I want to do one more thing. I want to show you how to determine the type of a variable. So for example, in your Python coding, you have a variable, but you are not sure about this variable's type. So what you're going to do is that you can print out this variable's value by simply type print and put the variable name inside the parentheses. And also you can print out the type of this variable. So when you do print and inside the parentheses, you have to type type and then give another parenthesis, and then you put the variable name inside the type. So let's try this one here. So you can see my output, the value of this variable has been printed out, and also the type of this variable has been printed out. It tells me this variable is a tuple. Okay, so if I actually assign a list value to this variable, and let's try again, and you can see this the value of this variable has been printed out. It's a list because when I print out the type of this variable, it says it's a list. The class here means what is the type of this variable? It's a list. So if I actually, let's say, I assign a string value to this variable, let's see what's going to happen here. You can see the value of this variable, this is my score, has been printed out, and the type of this variable has been printed out to me. It tells me that it's a string. Okay. So these are the different types of variables, and also how you can assign a value to a variable and to create a new variable and print it out and print down the type of it.